All right, this video is to help you understand how to complete the Trig Graph Discovery Level 5 in DeltaMath. So let's take a look at an example. So I have this sine function here, and they've left a, b, h, and k blank for me. And what I can see is I have my parent function as a solid line on the graph, and the dashed function is what they want me to transfer or transform it to. So the first thing I can see is I always like to start with the midline. And I can see it looks like the dashed graph is still centered about the x-axis. So we can leave k blank, because remember if we change k, it changes the midline. So I'm going to leave it blank. So then I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my amplitude. So what I notice is I have the sine function. It's starting right here at the origin. However, it's going up while this one looks like it's going down. Now that could be due to our amplitude, or it could be due to a phase shift. So let's just focus on the amplitude for right now. So if I pick somewhere here along the x-axis, I count up to the peak. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units that it's been stretched. So I'm going to put in a 5, and I'm just going to ask it to try it for me. All right, and we can see that we're close. So I have a feeling there's not any difference to the period, but I'm going to find out here in just a moment. So let's start with our phase shift. Actually, let's go with the period first. Period's pretty easy to do. And so when I'm going to look for the period for the sine function, I have to see it's going down and then back up and then back to 0 at 12 pi over 5. So the formula for doing the period is to take 2 pi, which is our period of our parent function. So I'm going to take 2 pi, 2 pi, and then I need to divide it by whatever I'm seeing the period at on my new graph. So that's going to be 12 pi over 5. Now, because I'm dividing by a fraction, I've got to rewrite this using a multiplication. So I'm going to have 12 pi times 5 divided by, it should have been a 2 pi there. Getting a little carried away with my denominator. 2 pi, so this should be 2 pi times 5 divided by 12 pi. Then the nice thing is the pi's are going to cancel out. All right, pi's are going to cancel out. And then I'm going to have 2 times 5, so that's going to give me 10 over 12, which will simplify. They're both divisible by 2, so that's going to simplify to 5 over 6. So we're going to have 5, 6 in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in, because it does look like our period is no longer 2 pi. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter. And so now I think it's got the period correct. It looks like we have the period and the amplitude correct. So let's try a phase shift now. So phase shift. So all that's happening at what it looks like is, for instance, this point here, I could do it from 0, 0 or from the peak. So let's do it from 0, 0. That's usually the easiest place to see it from. So I'm starting at 0, and it looks like it's taken this point and moved it over here. And that is 6 pi over 5. So that's what I'm going to try, 6 pi divided by 5. And it lined it up. So the graph is correct. So I'll go ahead and just submit. And there's one example. We'll take a look at another one in a second. So we're going to keep practicing. We're going to go through another one. Let's keep practicing, and let's take a look at another one. So this one gives us a cosine graph. That's all right. So we can go ahead and take a look at that. So I have a cosine graph. It looks like in this one, again, I'm going to start with the midline. So my midline for my parent function, of course, is the x-axis, y equals 0. But it looks like the midline here has been moved to y equals -2. So I'm going to come over and put it at -2, and I'm just going to press enter. I'm going to get it to move it down close to where it should be. Okay, so it looks like the amplitude is okay, so I'm going to leave the a value alone. I can put a 1 in there if I wanted to. For a and b, if you don't want to put anything in there or you don't like leaving them blank, put in 1s. But for h and k, if you don't think it has it, put in a 0, because you're adding. Those are add-ins versus factors. So looking at the period here, it looks like they may have changed the period a little bit. So we start with cosine. So we would be starting here at our maximum. I'm looking at the dashed line. And if it helps, you could take this back out. We know it's going to be -2. So let me get it out of the way. So it looks like what they've done here is if I start here at the minimum and I go from 3 and my next minimum is at 11, that means my period now is 8 units. So what I would do is I would take 2 pi, and I need to divide it by 8. So 2 pi divided by 8. So that's going to give us pi over 4. So that's what our new period is going to be, is pi over 4. So we're going to go pi over 4 here, pi divided by 4. Whoops, not 0.4, divided by 4. And then I know my midline was -2. So let's go ahead and press enter and see where this gets us to. Okay, so we've got the midline correct, we've got the period correct, but I'm still not completely lined up with it. So what I'm going to take a look at is look at where my maximum here was. It's at 0, but it looks like they've moved it back 1. So since I'm moving to the left, I'm going to make that a -1. And I'm going to go ahead and press enter and see what happens. And we're golden. So we'll go ahead and submit that. And we got a correct answer. So if you have any more trouble with these, come see me during Bolt Lunch, and I'll be more than happy to work with you until we get them done.